sexuality educator. So as the adults in our family, we have a responsibility when talking to our children about sexuality to help them sort out their beliefs and their boundaries. And we also have a responsibility to provide them with facts and help them sort out what's true and what isn't true. That's a big responsibility, and it can seem pretty daunting, especially if we aren't used to talking to our kids openly about sexuality. So here are 3 things I want you to remember every time you have a conversation with your kids about sex or sexuality that should make it a little bit easier. Number 1, own your values. Number 2, state the facts. Number 3, avoid myths. A value is a principle or a standard of behavior that we feel is important. They are often beliefs that guide us and help us make decisions in our lives. Our sexual values are influenced by all sorts of things. It can be our personal feelings and experiences. It can be the lessons that our families have taught us. It can be the lessons that come from the larger culture or the community that we live in. It can come from our religion. It can be influenced by our race, by our ethnicity, by media, all sorts of things. Some examples of sexual values are: it's okay for my child to be curious about their body. I want to be married before I have a baby. It's okay if my child sees me naked. I think it's okay to have sex when you're not in a relationship. I wouldn't have sex if I wasn't in a relationship. I think it's important to practice safer sex every time you have sex. Why is having sexual values important? Well, the options for expressing and experiencing sexuality are virtually endless, and there's no choice that's going to be right for everyone. When we share our sexual values with our children, we're helping them to develop their own set of boundaries and permission, and we're helping them to figure out how to make sexuality okay for them. What does owning your values sound like? If you've ever seen a TV shrink, they'll say things to their clients like, "You need to use I statements." That's basically what owning your values sounds like. You're going to use I statements. I think, I feel, I believe, I've experienced, in my opinion. This is what you believe. This is what's important to you. So that's what you want to communicate to your kid when you're talking about your values. There's no guarantee that our children are going to have exactly the same values that we do around sexuality as they grow up, but there is some research to suggest that kids whose families share their values openly and in a positive way are more likely to hold similar values when they grow up as their parents or caregivers. Let's move on to facts. A fact is a consistently true piece of information that is based on evidence. There are also such a thing as personal facts, which is the truth of your own experience. Same-gender marriage is legal in Canada and the United States. Little kids with little penises sometimes get little erections. I didn't have an orgasm the first time I had sex with another person. The pill is 99% effective at preventing pregnancy when used perfectly, and is about 92 to 97% effective at preventing pregnancy with typical use. I really hate being catcalled. Most people will grow hair under their arms and around their genitals when they hit puberty. Sexual facts are great. Not only can they help our kids understand their bodies and their brains and the world around them, but we can also use sexual facts to support our sexual values. For example, we might say to our teen, you know what, if you're thinking of becoming sexually active, I feel it's really important for you to consider starting a form of birth control. And then you can support that with your fact by saying something like, did you know that the pill is highly effective at reducing the risk of an unintended pregnancy? We can also use our personal facts to support our values. So you might be out one day with your kid and they see a woman walk by and they yell out, "Hey cutie," because they think it's funny. And you can share your value and say, you know what? I don't think that's funny. I don't think that's very nice. And then you can support that with your personal fact by saying, you know what? Sometimes people do that to me and I don't like it very much. When we're able to state facts about sexuality, we show our kids that we're reliable sources of information and that they can come to us whenever they have questions. Finally, we have myths. Sexual myths are widely held beliefs about sex or sexuality that aren't true. Women who have a lot of sex have low self-esteem. If you have an abortion, you'll never be able to get pregnant again. You can't get pregnant or contract an STI if you use a condom. Boys are not as emotional as girls. Everyone loves sex. Sexual myths exist for a few reasons. One reason is that because we live in a culture where, as I said before, we can be uncomfortable talking about sex and sexuality, especially with our children. And we can be especially uncomfortable when we have to talk about things that are complicated or complex or nuanced. And so myths let us talk about sex in a way that is simple and easy. Myths are often used to discourage people away from certain sexual thoughts, feelings, or behaviors, often by scaring them or by making them feel ashamed. Some sexual myths exist because there's a piece of information that we sincerely think is true, but it turns out not to be. In the short term, sexual myths can be a really convenient way of shoring up your sexual values because myths sound like facts, but unlike facts, myths can be conveniently crafted to support any value you have. Long term, using myths is just not a good idea. It is totally okay to have boundaries and beliefs around sexuality, and it's absolutely okay and important to talk to our kids about those beliefs. But when we use myths, what happens in the long term is that we undermine our own credibility and we undermine our kids' trust in us. We can also inadvertently create a lot of shame and confusion in our own kids if their experiences of sexuality are different from what we've told them. You might share a sexual myth with your child by accident because you actually legitimately thought it was true. What do you do when you just make an honest mistake? You say to your kid, you know what? I made a mistake. I told you this thing that I thought was true, but it turns out it's not. So here's the true information. We all make mistakes, and when you can admit to your kid that you've made a mistake, that actually helps to build up their trust in you. And that's it. No matter what you and your kid are discussing around sexuality, remember, own your values, state the facts, avoid myths. Let me know in the comments what some of your strategies are for talking to your kids and teens about sex. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Feel free to share it. And as always, if you haven't subscribed yet, I would love to have you as a subscriber. That way you won't miss any of my videos. So that is all for now. I hope you have a great day and I will see you soon. Bye.
Oh my gosh, stop that! How do you tell your kid that you're not comfortable with something that they're doing sexually without making them feel ashamed? And for more sex ed content, follow me on social media and of course, do the clicky thing on the subscribe button.